Is there any exception under CCPA for research?
Yes, the question is there any exception under the CCPA for research? So I will looking at the provisions of the law itself. There are some provisions that relate to research that are relate mostly to research, scientific, historical, statistical research in the public interest. That has to do more with the opt-out right. It's an exception to the requirement to delete data. That's the primary purpose for it, but there are a variety of other exceptions relating to research and business purposes that should be noted under CCPA. But the primary one that I think is relevant here is the one that relates to deletion. And there are very specific requirements about what research, how it has to comply with the requirements of the statute, which probably don't have enough time to go into, but the law does talk about what the data has to be used for in connection with research. So there are some restrictions there as well.
Thank you for that response, Scott. Let's move on to Charles Harris. Charles, I have a question for you. Where can you find health information data when you're looking for it?
So I spoke about that a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of it is with health information exchanges. I mean, health information exchanges sometimes only choose to work with certain companies such as insurers. But I mean, if you can't get it from health information exchanges, there are other data vendors out there who have health information data sets with health information, and I think you'll find that the majority of those will be de-identified information.
All right, thank you for that, Charles. Let's move ahead. Let's go to Carolyn now. Carolyn Ryan, when are there some of the costs associated with these types of breaches? When are some of the costs, and what are some of the costs associated with these types of breaches that you were discussing?
Oh, sure. My goodness, that's usually the $1 million question that everybody asks me. So really the average cost of a breach is approximately $603,000, because you got to consider the large breaches, which kind of skews the data. Now I'm getting this from the net diligence study, but the median cost of a breach is usually around $61,200. Now when I say that, that includes everything: forensics, breach coaches, which is like the legal counsel, notification services, monitoring. But that's where when you talk to the settlements and the business interruption costs are another large portion of that, and really the average associated with that is around $50,000.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go around back to our first speaker, Scott Pink. Scott, I have another question for you. What incentive can a covered entity provide for a market authorization? What incentive can a covered entity provide for a marketing authorization? I don't know, Scott, did you hear the question? An incentive? What incentive can a covered entity provide for a marketing authorization? I'm not sure if Scott is hearing me, so let's move on. Charles Harris, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, Charles, we're going to give a question to you then. What about data from wearable devices? Is that data protected health information, and how can someone get at it?
So it's usually not going to be considered protected health information, and not because it doesn't necessarily fall within the definition, because normally it's not in the hands of a covered entity or a business associate. So even though it might fall within the definition of PHI, which we talked about before, it probably won't be covered by HIPAA. And the second question, I've never actually done any research on where you can actually get information that companies are collecting from wearable devices, but I'm sure that you can get it from somewhere, because I'm sure that that is a income stream that these companies are trying to take advantage of.
Okay, thank you for that. Jennifer Belt, are you still with us?
I am.
Jennifer, I would just like to give you the opportunity to give us some closing thoughts, some key takeaways from your presentation, to give you a chance to come in here and offer some thoughts.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned in closing in my presentation, there is increased enforcement activity, increasing fines and penalties, and as Karen just alluded to, significant costs associated with responding in the event of a data breach or a complaint or an investigation by the Office of Civil Rights. And so, if providers didn't have enough reason to care, some of those statistics and enforcement highlights really underscore the need for a robust compliance program and revisiting that program at periodic intervals to ensure that you've incorporated the latest resources at your disposal, including technological advances, so that your data is secure.
And thank you for that. We have time for one more question. We're going to return to Carolyn Ryan now. Carolyn, when it comes to medical device cybersecurity, what are some of the trends that we're seeing now?
Well, other than what I've spoken about earlier, some of the one of the things that we have seen a lot of lately when it comes to medical device security, we've seen malicious codes that can go undetected. This is probably one of the largest, most unpredictable cyber threats that is out there. And it basically is when software is installed in the network and goes undetected and can command a network to get data without anyone in the company actually knowing about it. So it actually can make a medical device unusable, vulnerable, and deny service. And it can be a very, very dangerous thing.